Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this webinar. This is our webinar, What Makes a Good Mentor, a panel discussion. My name is Kate, and I am, as of a week and a half ago, a library services engineer at EBSCO. But until last week, I was the electronic resources librarian at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro and a member of the Continuing Education Committee here at NASIG. And on behalf of the NASIG Continuing Education Committee, I'd like to welcome you to our first March webinar. This webinar will be presented by Danielle Williams, Kate Seago, and Johannes Loetz. So before I begin the presentation, I have a few quick announcements. First, this webinar will be recorded, and anyone who is registered for the webinar will receive a link for the recording email shortly following the webinar. Second, if you have any questions for Danielle, Kate, or Johannes during the presentation, please enter them into the WebEx Q&A box located on the right lower corner of the WebEx window. If you can't see the Q&A box, click on the Q&A icon in the upper right corner of the WebEx window. The Q&A box will appear in your lower right corner. They will answer your questions during or at the end of the presentation, and I promise that we'll save at least 10 minutes at the end for questions. And finally, when the webinar is over, you will be directed to a survey about the webinar. I hope you'll take a few minutes to fill it out and let us know how we're doing and what we can do better. And please share future ideas for future webinars. Those are very important to the Continuing Education Committee, and we do listen to them and often act on them. And with that, I'm going to introduce today's speakers. So we have Danielle Williams. Danielle is the Collection Development and Electronic Resources Librarian at the University of Evansville Library in Illinois. She's been a member of NASIG for 18 years and has participated in mentoring activities for NASIG for 5 of those. She's currently the co-chair of the mentoring committee, director of the student mentoring group, and a director of the LIS Ambassadors program. Kate Seago is currently serves as the director of acquisitions, which covers print serials, electronic resources, and monographs at the University of Kentucky. Kate holds a BA in classical languages from Berea College. Is that how I pronounce it, Kate?
Yep.
Yay! And an MA degree in classical languages and library science from the University of Kentucky. She became involved with mentoring as a mentee in the University of Missouri-Columbia Intern Scholar Program and has enjoyed being both an informal and formal mentor. And Johannes Loetz is a library technician at Longmont Public Library in Longmont, Colorado. He grew up in Bolivia and has lived in 5 states, including Colorado, since 1996. He has a BA in Biology and Environmental Studies from CU Boulder, so it's Colorado University, and is currently a graduate student in the online MLIS program at Valdosta State University in Georgia. Starting in 2002 as a volunteer, he has been at the Longmont Library for 18 years and has worked in about every department. Currently serves in adult reference, staffing, sorry, my thing got screwed up, staffing, at the public desk in charge of ILL, and has worked at 6 different communities for the library, City of Longmont, and Colorado Association of Libraries, or committees, I am sorry. He aspires to work in the resources sharing or ILL department in an academic library. So I'm going to now stop sharing my screen. I'm going to turn this over to our presenters, and I just want to let everyone know about a little bit about the format of this. So this is not going to be all of our presenters talk with a slide deck. All of our presenters are going to be talking, but we will be basically doing a panel discussion. So I have a few questions, and we will be going through those questions, and each panelist will have a chance to answer. If you have any questions, as I said, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. And in addition, we will at least save 10 minutes at the end for those. So to begin with, and it doesn't really matter which one of you guys wants to start, the first question we have is, what does being a mentor mean to you? What defines a mentor-mentee relationship?
Well, a mentorship is it's an open and focused flow of information from somebody practiced and battle tested in the field to somebody eager to learn the ropes in order to save time, resources, and better understand the nature of the field. It's gaining perspective from someone as to how real life intersects with theory. The relationship allows ideas to be exchanged, myths and misunderstandings corrected about the field. And it's an opportunity for the mentee to plan ahead effectively and figure out which steps to take right now in order to meet their goals.
That's a really great answer. Thanks, Johannes.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to talk about what they feel a mentor-mentee relationship is defined as?
I agree completely with Johannes. And for me, it's been like a step back. I can see, what they're going through. And I remember, oh, well, I should have done this differently. And I'm able to share my experience with them. And that's really important to me as a mentor. It's not just, oh, well, you should try this type of job. It's how are you interviewing? I mean, is there a support there that can help you practice interview? Have you worked on your resume? Do I need to look at your resume? Do you want me to look at your resume? It's, helping new people get into the profession and, get into something that I really love, and I want to help them love it as much as I do.
Thank you. Kate, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would agree with both Danielle and Johannes. I would add one of the roles I see being a mentor is simply taking the time to listen to the person and hear what they're going through. Sometimes it means providing advice. Sometimes it's being more non-directive and they come up with their own solutions. But I would also say most of my best mentor-mentee relationships have been outside the regular hierarchy, somebody not my supervisor.
So you think
absolutely. Sorry.
No, go, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes you go to a supervisor and, you're in that supervisory, position, or they're in their supervisory position over you. So you can't always be completely honest. So yeah, definitely, giving them some way to get out of that position and speak openly is also very important. Absolutely.
So honesty and it sounds like active listening is a really important part for you, Kate.
Yes.
So our next question, which you kind of have talked a little bit, but as a mentor, so if we have two I think everyone's been a mentee probably on this panel before, but I know I have. But for our people who have been mentors, both in an informal or formal setting, what has being a mentor brought to you professionally and personally in terms of growth? And for our people who are more focused on the mentee perspective, what has been being a mentee, same question, brought to you professionally and personally in terms of growth? So what is the experience meant to you?
This is Kate. As a mentor, what it's really given me a chance to do is connect with younger colleagues. And it's given me a really, Danielle touched on this a little bit about a chance to reflect on what I've done in the past, seeing it through new eyes. And it's an opportunity to see how different people view the profession and help them connect with it.
I think for being a mentor is, getting a bird's eye view or first look at, how the profession has been changing. I mean, I participate in, educational opportunities outside of the library, but, knowing what they're being taught now in library school, it really opens my eyes, and I find myself thinking, oh, I wish I had had that class when I was in library school, and just, they're doing so many different things now, and it's so important to the profession. And sometimes as a professional, we get hunkered down in our office. We have to get our work done. We have to do this and this and this, and we don't always get a chance to see, oh, well, this really needs to be addressed in my library. I really need to look at this as a professional. So it's really opened my eyes up in that way as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Danielle. I think the perspective about change is a big one. I think when you come into the field and you're just like, okay, here I am. Well, what's up? Right. And I think somebody that has had a long time in the field can say, look, I know that it's this way right now, but it's come from over here. And that's a big change, or that's small, or it's, what have you. And for me, anyway, being a mentee, It's been fairly massive. I think it's had a big difference on how I just engage with the whole field. I mean, first of all, even, excuse me, even before you look at what information, is transferred, right away it sends a signal to somebody else saying, okay, this person is serious. They really want to look into the field. They want to research it. They want an inside view. They also are concerned about focusing their efforts and being efficient and effective and all that. So this is it's a serious step in that direction. Well, especially as a student, the choices that I'm making right now. So I just started this spring semester as an online student, and the choices that
Congratulations.
oh, thank you. The choices that I made, to choose that school and then to choose, which sub specialization and which courses, all that sort of thing. Um, those are investments in time, money, all that sort of thing, and you want to make sure that those are setting you up for later on future success. And it's hard to know that beforehand and say, oh yeah, this looks like it could be useful. Hope so. I don't know. I guess I'll see. But with a mentor, they can tell you, yeah, really, it's not really like that. Try this other thing. Have you thought about this? And those are just invaluable. That's invaluable advice. And also, I think, like you were saying, outside of being your supervisor, you can really get a window on um, things that you may not have seen. I mean, whole different. Like my mentor, she's in New York, and it's a completely different environment. They're in an academic library, which I want to get into, and so it adds a whole nother dimension. Also, just to expand your network of people
Mm-hmm.
that you know. And I have to plug the peace of mind piece is also gigantic. Just to know, because some of the decisions that I made and thought I would make, some of them have been right, and some of them have needed some adjustment. But in either case, without knowing, you just kind of say, well, I hope this decision, but with somebody there to check you and
Mm-hmm.
to look at your plans and say, actually, yeah, or no, you should try this, then you can really get some. That helps.
Thanks. For Kate and Danielle, did you as mentees find something similar with that Johannes has been talking about? What were your experiences as thinking back? What were your experiences as mentees? How did you grow in those ways?
Well, my very first mentor-mentee relationship was actually in my high school, and my high school librarian sent me on the path to librarianship, and he gave me some very good advice in terms of schools and interest in things like that.
I would have to say my first experience with being a mentee was right after I graduated from college. Um, I was working in the library. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a kind of well, this is what I love. This is what I'm going to major in. And it didn't really apply to anything. And then, I started working in the library and I loved it. And I had
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 people saying, this is how you do this. This is what you need to do. And they helped me look at grad schools and they helped me look at my options. And it was just, it was such a relief to have someone in the profession who could sit down and say, okay, let me help you. I'll hold your hand through this part of it, and help you get started. And it was just, I know Johannes said, and Kate as well, it was such a relief, that I don't have to do this myself. I don't have to figure it out. I can rely on someone to help me with it.
Thank you guys all so much. So now we're going to go into more. Now we're talking about the experiences. We're going to talk a little bit about what do you think makes someone a good mentor or a good mentee? What qualities? And I'm going to combine 2 questions. So like, what makes someone a good mentor or a good mentee, and what techniques or methods do you use to help, or have you seen used to help people be good mentors or mentees?
Uh, well, picking up on what I said initially, I think listening skills and some practice with active listening can be useful on the mentor and the mentee perspective. Um, for that, um, the other thing I found useful is willingness to ask questions on both sides. seek out, information, what's on your mind? What about this point seems to be going well? What's going on in your life? Just being willing to be a little curious about the other person.
Yeah, for me, for both, as has been said here, definitely active listening. It's a huge piece. Both parties have to be, willing to openly communicate, and really that involves as much listening as it involves speaking. They both have to compromise in the amount of time that they're willing to spend on the relationship, and that there are ebbs and flows. Like sometimes it is just, 1,000 questions and 1,000 answers, and you really learn a lot fast. And other times it's just quiet, nothing's going on, you just stay the course. I think for me, what has helped me so much from my mentors is that they have taken the time to reflect on their experiences over the long term and really, they've discerned what's made the difference. What did I put effort into that really paid dividends, and what maybe really didn't, I didn't need to worry about so much. Um, they tend, I think it's really helpful when they're honest with their career paths and choices and just said, you know what, I tried this thing, it was a total screw up, shouldn't have done it. Hey, don't you do it either. Those are huge because they can just save you that whole painful process of, man, I woulda, shoulda, coulda. But I think the good mentee treats the relationship as a special project or a really detailed paper, in the sense that it takes preparing in advance, doing research, also being honest with yourself and saying, okay, what are my goals? What are my expectations? Yeah, I'm sorry, my light has gone off.
Oh no! You're just being too
See,
still.
okay, there.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, right. I need to wave my hands around more. Um, yeah, taking the time to look at your personal goals. Also keeping eyes and ears open to other opportunities and see, oh, this might be a good idea. Should I do this? And bringing those to the mentor, um, so that they can give feedback. I think there's a special onus on the mentee also to not fall into the trap of, okay, I'm just going to tell them what I need to do. They're going to give me a roadmap, A to B, step 1, 2, 3. Great, I'm done. And I think it's actually, although the mentor may have the lion's share of the relevant knowledge, it's actually the mentee that does most of the heavy lifting. And apologies to any of my mentors who work really hard at dealing with me, because I'm sure they do.
I would say as both is not to hesitate to reach out to each other. I've reached out to my mentees, several times, especially when there's a long period where I haven't heard from them. I always reach out and say, are you okay? Is everything going okay? Can I help with anything? And that opens up a whole treasure trove of conversation. So really being open, not only about your experiences, but, about their personal life, don't get too personal, but, is everything okay? I mean, are you traveling? Take an interest in them. Really beyond just being a professional, and help them balance that work-life relationship, because it's so different after you graduate, and to help them get to that moment where they can be a whole person, where they're not just being a student and that's it, where they can be a professional, where they can be a parent, where they can be a partner, just really helping them with that and helping them open up a little bit more about what life can be and what they want from life, not just on a professional setting.
I guess I was wondering for
I
you.
should say, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Johannes.
I just I forgot about the second question, the methods. Really, I think.
I was a terrible person and joined them together because these actually can be the same question.
Well, I think first and foremost, I try to give my mentor full attention, and that means obviously listening and asking questions and all that, but also preparing in advance. Making sure that the time that you have, and sometimes it's just online, so it's a little easier, but if it is, especially if it's face to face, being efficient with that time and bringing all your questions, preparing in advance, saying, okay, here are all the things that I've been thinking about. Really use them. They're a resource, and it's wonderful to have that opportunity now. Make full use of that time. I think also something I try to do with my mentor is celebrate my success, is to say, hey, I got into this thing, or I started doing this, or what have you. I think it's just as critical for the mentee to feel like they're getting something out of the relationship, but also for the mentor to feel like, hey, I'm being effective, I'm contributing to this person becoming who they want to be. And that's just really, I think, an empowering feeling. And in some programs, you're able to pick the mentor. And especially in those cases, I think you want to give a lot of thought about who, who it is that you're selecting and why. What are they essentially where you want to be? And even if they are, do they have those skills, the interests, the life experiences, the career path? All of those elements may bring something to you, get you to where you want to be, or shed some light in something that you didn't think would be useful.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to follow-up question just because I was thinking about it when I've been working with mentor and mentee programs. Something that has come up a lot is frequency of like how frequently should you meet, and also is it really better to do an online versus in person, right? I've done both. And what I'm just curious about what your thoughts are, especially about like the amounts of time, like how much touch, right, should there be in terms of communication between mentors and mentees? What have you found works?
I think it does vary a little bit. For the past two more formal experiences I've had through the NASIG mentor program, we've been touching base about once a month. And in both relationships, we've ended up preferring a phone conversation, and that has seemed to work well. In other cases, for a while, I was mentoring several graduate assistants who would go off and get jobs. And in that case, it could be rather intensive during the GA-ship, but then as they got professional jobs, it would trickle off, and I might hear from them frequently in the first couple of months, like, what do I do in this situation? Or if a cataloging question came up that they didn't know where to start on or something. And then they would get their feet under them, and you would kind of expect them to exercise more independence. And so I may see them now at conferences. We touch base now and then, but it's not as active as it has been.
For me, I have both. I actually have two mentors, and the mentor that I have through NASIG is purely online, and the one that I have more locally is face to face. And so I think there are pros and cons to both. And with NASIG, like Kate, like you were saying, it's about once a month. And with my other mentor, it's a lot because we have that easily accessible person. It's actually much more frequent. And I feel that it just, it depends on, all kinds of factors. If the person is doing exactly what you want to do, you may want to pick their brain, like you may feel like wanting to do it every day. And if somebody is has a career path that maybe isn't like yours, then maybe you only touch on theory or what have you. So I think it's really up to kind of the personalities of the two of the mentor mentee pair, and they kind of figure that out as they go. But it just depends, and but I've really loved both experiences.
I agree with both. It depends on the relationship. Are they close? Are they in the same profession? And I think I'm going to give a little plug for the NASIG mentoring group. I think for NASIG, we try and match people who have similar interests, but I think most of that, it comes down to broad professional kind of pairings. It's not, it can be, of course, day to day. How do I do this task? How do I do this? How do I face this situation? But for me, contacting my mentees has been more about, okay, do you know how to apply for jobs? Do you know where to apply for jobs? And they can feel free to ask me, very specifically, how do I handle this type of situation in my professional and school life? But as Kate and Johannes has both pointed out, it really depends on the type of mentoring you have. Is it on the job day to day, or is it professional once a month? I think both can be very good, and I think going back to earlier conversation, it depends on how often you communicate and being open with each other.
So I am going to jump to a I actually feel one of the reasons I put this question on is I actually feel we can learn as much from our failures and our poor experiences as we can from our successes. So I was wondering if you could tell me about a poor, if you've had one. Maybe all of your mentor and mentee experiences have been glorious, maybe. But if you've had a poor mentor or mentee experience, if you could talk a little bit about that and what kind of lessons did you take or learn from that so others can learn from past mistakes.
I think I had one experience very early on where I was a mentee. It was a formal program and it was library wide, and it was a situation where the mentor and the mentee were assigned to each other. And I think the intention between the pairing that I received was kind of good. They were trying to go across public service technical services, but it turned out that the two of us did not at that point do a real good job of practicing active listening with each other, and we tended to talk about not with, perhaps, looking back on it. She was also kind of in a different place and interested much more in professional networking. And at that point in my job, I was more interested in the technologies and improving the workflow and using the new technologies to assist in the job. So we were also had two very different perspectives on kind of the profession in general.
So you were just basically kind of coming at it from a very so that's kind of the point of like trying to make sure you have a match and a same interest.
We tried, but there didn't seem to be that connection point where we could meet in the middle.
You just have two different, very different expectations.
Yep.
Do you?
For me, I haven't really had a bad experience, so I can't really give you any examples. But I think maybe one of the easiest ones would be to misjudge the amount of time that either you have to give to the relationship, or that the expectation that you have of your mentee or of your mentor.
So be prepared basically to actually commit some time. Don't just sign up when you're like, oh, that would be good.
For sure. Yes, exactly. Oh, this looks good on paper, sort of thing.
When I was first in the profession, I had a very bad mentoring experience. I had I've supervised two women who were much older than me and had been in the library obviously much longer than I had been. And I didn't know how to handle, asking them to do things, or just getting them to learn new things. It was very difficult. And I would go to my mentor and he would say, well, whatever you decide to do, will be best. And I'm like, I need practical help. and I never really got that. And it's a fine line to walk being a mentor and a mentee. But sometimes when you go to someone, you have to have that fine touch where you say, okay, this is how you do this. If I were you, I would try this, instead of just saying, I will support you. Whatever you decide to do, that would be best. Remember, you're their supervisor, but I had no supervisory experience and I wasn't getting that kind of help at the time. So I think really being a mentor, and being a mentee is that you have to agree that there's things you don't know and there's things that the mentee doesn't know, and be aware of that and help, not just, well, this is how you handle this in the profession, but, say, okay, let's sit down, let's look at their personalities, let's look at your personality. How do you two work together?
So be willing to actually give advice and sit down and do the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to have I'm going to get to the next question, but another question that I was thinking about when we were talking was some of the thing I was hearing from both of you was like kind of a mismatch, right? In expectations and a mismatch in what people were thinking a mentor mentee was. How do you, and this kind of goes to the next question, but like what advice would you have for people who are thinking about being a mentor or mentee to try to get on that same page with the other person in their program? Like, how do you make sure that we can kind of get past that expectation mismatch?
I think that something that helps a lot is for a prospective mentee to first ask themselves why they want to be a mentee. Why do they want a mentor? What's the objective? And that way you can tailor your expectations. Okay, this person isn't going to solve my everyday problems. I can come and say, hey, this is an example of something that I need, or like Danielle was saying, this is the specific problem that I have. What should I do? But I think, just to understand the nature of what the mentor can bring. They can't bring everything. They can't hook you up with, oh, yep, I got the job lined up for you. No problem. Just go here, fill this in, you're done. You know, um, so I think that's really important to manage to be able to be successful with that.
Yeah, I think for the mentor, looking at being willing to commit a certain amount of time, willing to find out about what the mentee's interested in, and listening to their needs and seeing how good that pairing is. I have occasionally talked to people and advised them, go seek out this other person. What you're talking about aligns nicely with what they're doing. Find out about them. And or performed a little introduction.
So recognizing that like it will be helpful, but there are other people who might be able to serve their needs better, and making and facilitating that connection.
Yeah, and sometimes as you work out the mentor-mentee relationship, you may realize this is a time when I need to say to this person, maybe you want to investigate this or that, and that may mean that you move on to a new mentor in your job.
I think also something important is to make sure that there's a mindset for possible change. I think that sometimes there can be almost an expectation of, okay, I'm going to go to my mentor and tell them I've got it all worked out, all planned out. They just need to give me a stamp of approval and I'm good. But there are so many things that you find out that you say, oh, but I thought it was this way, and you're telling me it's completely different. And to be willing to say like, okay, well, this is an expert in the field. The whole point of this relationship is to find out how things really work under the hood. And to be able to say, okay, you know what? I got to change my goals, change my expectations, decide something else to do, modify my decisions. I think that's important to be flexible.
Yeah, I think a lot of what Aiden and Johannes have both mentioned is that you have to prepare to be a mediator, and not necessarily between staff and supervisor, but between the mentee and the library itself and the library profession. You have to be prepared to, step in and say, okay, let's try it a different way. Or like Johannes said, let me hook you up with this person who might have a better idea. Or, if you're that unhappy, maybe you want a different job or a different position in the library. Just be prepared to offer suggestions, but also offer a counter, or maybe, you're not looking at it the right way. So, being a mediator, being there to jump in and say, play both sides of the coin with your mentee if you have that opportunity.
That is all really, really great advice. I am going to move on to our last question, which is, I think you've kind of already, so this is kind of a like, there's anything else that you'd like to add. So if you're thinking of being a mentor, or especially or starting a mentoring program, what advice or words of wisdom would you give if you had just kind of sum it up?
Be prepared to get personal. You know, you do have to draw on your own experience in order to help someone else. And you have to be able to, and not necessarily just as a professional, you have to draw on that, like I said, that work, life balance. Um, be prepared to offer your own experiences as an example of what to do or absolutely what not to do. You know, also understand everyone is different. You may have experienced something a certain way, but you have to understand I've been in this profession for 20 years. Stuff is different. I've learned that being a mentor and talking with my mentees. So, you have to understand, you have to go with the times, but you also have to say, well, when I was a librarian, and I hate to say this, but when I was in library school, we did it this way, which may not be the best way for you, but it might be offer a different perspective.
Mhm.
So be personal.
And then, yeah, and speaking about the program, I would, if you wanted to do a mentoring program, I'd be very careful to let people know kind of what the structure is, what the expectations are, and maybe let them know in advance how they're being paired up. Like I said, my one bad, my experience where it was a little negative was just that we had nothing in common. So some way, if you're relying for a program, some way to ensure there's that point of mutual interest, possibly, or allowing a possibility of reassignment if it's not clicking on it.
And so like it's structure, it's like what's the expectations of how often you'll meet, what you'll cover, things like that.
Yeah, a little structure can I like using the NASIG one as a model I found is very helpful in terms of particularly since a lot of us are long distance pairings as opposed to face in that particular program. I just realized something we hadn't touched on in terms of a mentor-mentee relationship, because a lot of times we're talking about past experience, current things and stuff like that, is asking for when necessary for confidentiality if that comes up, and saying, this is something I do want to talk to you about, but I need to ask or set a boundary if you need to.
Or Johannes's.
I'm lost again. Yeah. I mean, the lighting actually almost is better now, so maybe I'll just stay still.
Have anything to add about any further advice or anything you would say about a mentoring if you were thinking about starting a mentoring program?
Well, well, I I guess I really like the ability um, to pick your mentor. I think that adds a whole nother dimension to it. I love that way because you really not only do you get to see oh, I can find some really tailor something to my interest, but you also get to see other people and other professionals in the field, what they are doing, um, at what stages in their career they're at, and they're thinking about being mentors. So that's a really interesting dimension. But I think anybody who's considering starting a program, as long as they are, do it well, really good, because I found it to be, I mean, it's potentially one of the most rewarding things that you'll do in your career. And it can also be one of the most resource saving things that you do. I often feel like I'm cheating because there's so many shortcuts and so many things that I've avoided that would have been either huge headaches or time sinks, unnecessary time sinks, and I've gotten to avoid all of that, and that is just, that's huge. It's huge.
Thank you all so much for talking about your experiences. I want to let Danielle continue to plug and talk a little bit more, as we've already talked a little bit about the NASIG mentoring program, which everyone here has participated in. So Danielle, would you be willing to speak a little bit about that program and what we're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a year-long program. It starts in June. usually right after the conference. We give you an opportunity to meet at the conference if you're going to be there. But attending is not a requirement. So if you can't afford to go to the conference, please consider being a mentor anyway. Runs year long, and as Kate mentioned, we do offer, suggestions, topics for conversation just to get the ball rolling. And we do encourage mentors and mentees to reach out to each other even beyond the prompts. But they're just a set of questions, very basic. As I say, just get the conversation going. And you can choose how to interact with each other. It is sometimes a long distance relationship. We do take, when we're matching mentors and mentees, we do take into account the geography and try to, get them close if we can. But, it's North America, so we can't always match people, 2 people in Canada of the same province. And you can choose how to interact with each other. As I was saying, you can Skype, you can email, you can telephone. Let me see what other notes I have.
Danielle, I have to interject and say that the prompts that are sent out every month, those are huge also. I really like those. That's not an aspect of the other mentorship I'm in a program for, but in that case, it works really well because that mentor and I are actually highly motivated individuals. Like we just, we don't need much of a prompt. But the prompts that I have been given for the NASIG one have led me in directions I hadn't thought of before. And so those have been uniquely valuable for me, actually.
Good. Thank you. And it is open to library students, library school students, and new professionals. We've recently opened it up to new professionals because, coming from my experience, I need someone who's been in the profession a long time just to help me get the day-to-day stuff in. So we are opening it up, getting more mentees available, and hopefully more mentors to participate as well. It goes from, I think I said this already, June to May. We send out a couple of surveys just to make sure that everyone's matched properly. And I'm always open. I'm the chair this year. I don't know if I'll be next year, but I'm always open to questions. Whether I'm the chair or on the committee or not, feel free to send me a question, and I'll do what I can to help you.
And I had a quick question. As mentors, if you're looking for mentors, is there like a minimum requirement for being a mentor in any way?
So far, the requests we've had to be a mentor, they've all been in the profession, at least more than 5 years. So, if I had to set a cutoff date, I would say, 3 to 5 years. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to open this up now for questions if anyone has any. We don't have a huge amount of attendees, but if you do, please type them in our little chat to all participants here, our little Q&A, and we will answer those. I'll give you a few minutes.
And sorry, just seeing the chat now, I as well like the term battle tested instead. Thanks, Susan, for pointing that out. Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a question that got sent to me. Have you ever had to end a mentoring relationship? If so, how did you do it? If not, at what point would you end a mentoring relationship and before the official program is over?
This is Kate. I've not had a time where I've officially kind of ended a mentorship. I did mention this one person and I did not connect well, but the program was actually fairly short duration. We had like 3 or 4 meetings and kind of did the official formal version of it. And then afterwards went our separate ways. My experience with the mentor-mentee relationship has been, if it's formal, we kind of fill out the formal agreement, and then afterwards we may check in with each other if it feels right, or we may just kind of wave at each other at conferences or something like that.
Have you ever had to do anything like that, Danielle?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever.
Or have you experienced that in leading the mentor program for NASIG?
I only had one problem last year, and that was the mentee wasn't communicating. And I don't know, I tried to check with her, and I know her mentor tried to check with her, but there was no communication. There was no formal separation. I kept her on the mailing list, and I don't know if she just changed her email and didn't tell us, or she just dropped out of the program. But that's the only experience I've had with the NASIG mentoring program. I would say personally, I've never had to end a mentoring relationship. It just kind of ended organically, like when I left the area, or they left their position. Just little changes like that. Well, major changes actually, but they just severed the relationship.
And yes, Susan had a good point. She said that one of our attendees, she had mentors who did not seem to need mentors who did not seem to, or mentees, sorry, who did not seem to need much from her, and so the relationship ended softly. Yeah, like no one exactly ended it. You don't have a very firm end, but it just kind of peters out. Okay, if there's any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the QA. Give people a few more minutes, like another, see if no one's typing.
Well, I have a question for the mentors.
Yes. Ask it, Johannes.
I'd love to know what is it that you get from being a mentor? Like, what does it mean to you?
What I get is seeing the younger, newer librarians come into the profession and give them that leg up to succeed. So I'm really profoundly enjoy watching them blossom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would second that. That it's just I get a feeling of accomplishment. Like, oh well, I've helped this person. It's not. I may get information about what's coming up, but I don't get any. I can use this in my professional life. It's more of let me help you, which helps me learn too. I don't know if that's a good answer or not.
That's a great answer. Thanks.
It is your answer, and therefore it is a
Right,
good answer.
exactly.
Okay.
What it means to you.
I'm going, if no one has any more questions, I'm going to let people end early a little bit. However, before I do that, I'm just going to share my screen so you can kind of see, just give people a little bit of a chance. So this will flash on the recording at least. Let me share my PowerPoint again. I wanted to share. Oops. There we are. I wanted to get everyone's email up, so this is now on the recording. So if you have any further questions for any of the panelists or myself, feel free to contact us. I'm also going to go back one because I think I linked to it. Nope. There we are. And I also linked to the student mentoring through NASIG here. So if you are interested in that program, you can go to this link at nasig.org, student mentoring program information, and get more information, and hopefully decide to join as a mentor or mentee and let people in your libraries know about this really good program. I have not done the student mentoring. I did conference mentoring myself, which is just for the conference a few years back, like my first conference, first time attending a while back. So without that, I just want to thank all of the panelists. Thank you to Kate, Danielle, and Johannes for sharing your thoughts and insights. I thought this was a really, really great conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I will, as I said, be sending out this recording to everyone after this is done recorded. And then also, if you wish to share this with people who have not seen this or not NASIG members in 6 months, this will be available on NASIG's YouTube channel. So please feel free to share it at that point. Okay, everyone, thank you so much, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let's let's try to do this smoothly. I'm not doing anything smoothly right now. That's cool. Come on. There we are. So thank you so much. And I am now stopping recording.